in heaven. Stay alive. That's you and me. We're going to have fun. Say, lights off. Excalibur. It's about that bar. What do you mean? Give it taste. Going home. Time zone. Check it out, eh? Live alone. Leather legs. Get in play. What do you get? Say, fat jet. Zoom room. Cosmic zoom. Let's go, James. Sonic boom.
Sonic warrior, Sonic warrior.
You always need a day. You got the power to save the day.
Take a little chance. Live on through. You got to smile no matter what you do. You gotta do for you.
Sonic warrior, Sonic warrior.
The power is in your mind to shake the planet, to conquer time.
Sonic warrior,
Deep is busy time.
Sonic warrior.
With the in mind, nothing can survive the way to stay alive. If you try, you can do anything.
Sonic warrior.
Always takes a chance.
Sonic warrior.
Never think he can. Nothing can survive the way to stay alive. If you try, you can do anything.
If you try, you can do anything. Hello everyone, and welcome to Sonic the Hedgehog CD on Steam. I am One Wild Sheep yet again, and this is a fantastic game that was released years ago originally on the Sega Mega CD. And what can I say, I do enjoy this game, I love this game, but I do personally find it to be the weakest entry out of the original classic trilogy. Well, it's quad trilogy, I guess, because this is a fourth game, but basically it's the weakest link out of the classic standard 2D Sonic Sky-Scrollers, and I'm gonna get into why exactly, but it is a fantastic time, and I do recommend people to try it out. Now, I'm gonna primarily be playing a Steam version of this game because there's a lot of upgrades and what have you that I really want to get into. Like the Spin Dash, for example. The Spin Dash was also in this game, just like it was in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. However, in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the Spin Dash was a lot better off. Now this port of the game, obviously it runs in HD, as well as the fact I can actually do a decent Spin Dash. We also have a brand new ability given to us as well, folks, which is the Super Peel Out. This is one of the very few games it actually appears in, and if you press the D-pad up and then press the jump button, you can actually start charging up and revving up your speed. Doing so will allow you to get a massive burst of speed. Now what the Super Peel Out essentially does is it gives you a faster boost of speed than Spin Dash, but it leaves you more vulnerable. But if you can manipulate the controls a certain way, you can sort of do a Super Peel Out and then go straight into a ball. And that way you can sort of do this, you can have the effect of a Spin Dash despite having the Peel Out instead. So it's a little tactic I always like to use, like right by here for example, I use it. And one of the major gimmicks in this game, ladies and gentlemen, is time travel. You see, you get to, basically as you go through the stages, you find all these goalposts with past, present and future on the signs. Basically run to these goalposts, and then at the bottom left of the screen, you'll see a little icon saying past. Now if you can run fast enough for a long enough period of time, you will teleport to the past, present or future, depending on which one you're meant to go into. And the major goal of this game is actually going through each of these zones while collecting 50 rings and finding these things. These are robot thingies. I'm going to call them roboticizers because I just assume that's what they are. And basically you need to go through all the zones in the game and find one roboticizer. This will create a good ending. Now you can avoid all of these if you want, but the main focus of this Sonic game in particular is exploration. It's not straight get to the end of the stages, you know. The game wants you to explore. The game wants you to look out for all these roboticizers. And it's one of the two ways you can actually gain access to this good ending of this game. However, the second way you can gain access to this best ending of the game is the same way I'm doing right now. And it's the way I'm actually going to succeed in during this playthrough. In which case, we need to go through all of the special stages. And to get into these special stages, it works exactly like it did in Sonic the Hedgehog 1. You know, you jump through, you get 50 rings, you jump through a ring at the end of the goal, and Bob is your uncle. However, this game has no Chaos Emeralds, ladies and gentlemen. Because now, instead of Chaos Emeralds, we are actually collecting the Time Stones. There's 6 Time Stones in total. When you collect all 6, every time you go to the future, the world will be saved, essentially. And there's basically 2 ways to save the future of a level. You get a Time Stones, or you can get all the roboticizing machines in each of the zones. You know, you can get them in each act. So, yeah, for the first half of the playthrough, I'm basically going to be going after both the roboticizers and getting the time stones. But when I do collect all 6 time stones, I am going to stop with the roboticizers because they all become automatically destroyed. So basically, you get the same result depending on what you want, really. You know, you can play the game whatever way you like if you want. But the developers really have designed this game around exploration, and it's really obvious from the way the level design is. You know, the level design isn't straightforward. It isn't go from point A to point B. It's possible to, but the game's going to be ultra boring and tedious if you do that, you know? Well, but the main problem I do have with this game is the level design, actually, but not so much in this zone. This zone is actually pretty tame. Like, I honestly love playing through the earlier zones of the game, or some zones that aren't really obnoxious, but there's a couple of zones coming up that really ruin this game for me, and it's all because of how the mechanics work in comparison to the zones. Like, the game wasn't designed with Sonic's mechanics in mind properly, you know? It's very much a Sonic game, don't get me wrong, but it's designed in such a way that it's tedious to get through. It's more of a pinball-y sort of experience, but again, you won't be seeing that for a while. Anyway, you always need to go to the past in each of these zones, because that is the only place where you can find each of the roboticizing machines. If you go to the future, there's usually nothing there, so it's usually pointless to go to the future unless you want to see how things look, you know? Like, if you don't destroy a robotizer machine and you go to the future, the world will look all derelict and roboticized, and it will look like Eggman's effectively won. However, if you go to the future whenever you have a roboticizer destroyed, it's got a nice good future sort of thing where they got technology working alongside nature, and it's a nice thing, you know. I really like it. I really do like the way the mechanics could have worked. Now, I say that because the mechanics are also, the time travel mechanics are also the major issue with this game. Like, the way I probably would have handled it is, I would have had Act 1 take place in the past, Act 2 take place in the present, and then have a third act that takes place in the future, personally, but, yeah, this is the Sonic team that made this game, not me, and they're the game designers, so what do I know? But hey, there's a second act of the first zone over and done with. And it's effectively, whenever you go into the special stages, you need to destroy a load of UFOs. It's probably the weirdest special stage in the series, one of at least. But it's one of my favourites, just because you've got this isometric view and you just need to run and jump into all these UFOs, and basically you need to destroy a set amount before your time runs out. If you jump in the water, your time will shoot down rapidly, and that's no good, basically, you know. You don't want the time to go to 0. If the time goes to 0, you're gonna lose. Although there is a safety mechanic in that if the time goes to 0 in the special stages, or at least goes to less than 15 seconds, basically a giant blue UFO will pop up, in which case you can hit that blue UFO for extra time, which will essentially gives you infinite tries in beating the special stage. But they are very tricky. They are very tricky to go through, and it can be quite tedious, you know, if you don't know how to deal with them. So a lot of people really don't like the special stage. This is one of my favorite special stages personally in the series. It isn't my favorite special stage in the entire series. We are yet to see that. In fact, it'll be quite a while until we see my favorite special stage in the series, because that LP is coming up like in a month's time. You know, I have no idea when I'm getting to that LP. And I'm not spoiling what game it is, because it's going to be a surprise. Well, not really, because I'm doing all the Sonic games anyway, but I digress. Anyway, the music by here. I love the soundtrack of this game. Now, this game was released mainly with 2 soundtracks. One for the United States audience, and the rest of the world got a completely different soundtrack. And a lot of people have their own preferences. You know, some people prefer the American soundtrack, some people prefer the Japanese and European. Personally, I prefer the Japanese and European, and I think that's mainly because that's the soundtrack I grew up with, you know? Nostalgia has a huge thing with that, because obviously I live in Europe, so European soundtrack, cool! I love it! Toot Toot Sonic Warrior! Seriously, the soundtrack in both versions are really good, but I don't know, I always found the Japanese and European soundtrack to be more Sonic-y, you know, and more video gamey. But I digress. Anyway, we're now introduced to a brand new character. This here, ladies and gentlemen, is Amy Rose. Her first appearance in the Sonic franchise, and of course she's been kidnapped by Metal Sonic, who's this is also his first appearance, and Mel Sonic is a fan-favorite robot being made by Eggman. He's a recurring character in this franchise, folks, and honestly, I love Mel Sonic. I love his design. He's such a cool-looking robot. He doesn't really have much of a personality, at least at this point. He does get one later on where he's fucking nuts, but that's something for another time. But anyway, I haven't even gone over the plot of this, have I? Basically, there's got a giant planet that sort of popped up. It pops up once every couple of months over this giant lake. And essentially Sonic's gone to investigate this place because Eggman is obviously up to no good. He's trying to take over this planet by going back in time and planting all these roboticizers. So of course, it is down to us, down to the good old Blue Blur himself, to go fast! Hit 88 miles per hour, and you're gonna see some serious shit. And we're gonna... basically, we're gonna need to go through time and stop Dr. Eggman, you know? And also, this is also the first appearance of Amy Rose, as I said earlier on, and essentially what she's doing here is she followed Sonic. She reads tarot cards, and basically those tarot cards say your one true love will be on this planet. So she basically came over here like the crazy psychotic stalker that she is, and yeah, this is probably before she became an ultra mega psychotic stalker, but she's here just to see Sonic, and Bob's your uncle. She gets kidnapped, of course. So it's down to us to save her as well. And one thing I always found really weird is in the Western instruction manual or whatnot, Amy Rose was renamed to Sally Acorn. And if you guys don't know, Sally Acorn is actually one of the main characters from the Archie comic book series of Sonic the Hedgehog, and she's also one of the main characters in the cartoons of the Sonic series. You know, you got the Sat AM cartoon, which stars the Freedom Fighters with Sally Acorn and what have you. And I'm not too fond of the Archie universe stuff. You know, I've always grown up with Fleetway Sonic the comic, and I do love Sat AM, but I never really considered Sally to be a big influential character in the Sonic series. So I'm kind of glad that they dropped the whole Sally localization thing in Sonic Adventure when they brought back Amy Rose. But I digress. It's time to move on to yet another special stage. And of course, the zone we are currently in is actually called Collision Chaos, and I think that's a perfect segue actually to bring into my major issue with this game overall, and it's literally a matter of not collision detection, but the fact everything's chaotic in this game. You've got so many springs and what have you to bounce off. This game does its best job to annoy you, and a lot of the times it works. You know, I rarely get full playthroughs done in this game. Fortunately, I'm still good enough at the game to get through it just fine, so don't worry about that. But it's very rare I return to this game and do a full playthrough. I'll usually play my favourite levels and ignore the rest. In fact, this game contains one of my least favourite Sonic levels in all time. You know, the Sonic 06 levels I prefer to play as opposed to this. And Sonic 06, for those of you who don't know, is a pretty game. There's not really much I can say about that. I'll talk about that another time, though, when I get to the Sonic 06 LP, sometime in the next 10 years. But yeah, let's just continue moving through Collision Chaos, which, like I said, this zone has a lot of bumpers and stuff. You know, there's loads of things that can bounce you around. And I guess what they were trying to really make this similar to Sonic 1 in certain ways, because Sonic CD was actually developed by the same team, I believe, that made Sonic the Hedgehog 1, with the exception of the programmer who moved on to the Sonic 2 project, because this game was being developed at the exact same time as Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It was released a bit later on, but, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think this one actually started production earlier than Sonic 2. So essentially we're looking at Sonic 2 before Sonic 2. And a lot of the beta elements that were apparently planned for Sonic 2 are actually available in this game. For example, the time traveling mechanic, that gimmick, was originally apparently planned to be in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, so yeah, it's quite interesting when you look at things. Although Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a far superior game and still the greatest game of all time, but I digress. Anyway, we do need to do a lot of exploring. Like I said, this game is really exploration focused, you know, folks. If you don't like exploring, you're probably not going to enjoy this game too much. And I enjoy exploring, but I don't enjoy exploring in games that are designed to be point A to B platforms, you know? Like, give me an exploration-based game, like, say, Banjo-Kazooie. That's a game that's basically entirely exploration and collecting. But give me Sonic the Hedgehog. I have certain expectations that I have, you know? I expect the game to be point A, gotta go fast, point B, fun rides, roller coaster rides that involve some skill to get through. But this game doesn't really have that. This game is more slower paced platforming, and yeah, it's possible to go really fast in this game. But you need to know the game perfectly in order to go fast, which I guess is an argument a lot of people can make for all the Sonic games, including the newer ones. But I just find they're easier to get into to go fast, you know? I don't know, I'm just not too big a fan of this one, folks, you know? I'm gonna be as positive as I can during this playthrough because, well, I want to try and keep a positive LP going. But honestly, this game has a lot of issues, you know? I'm not too fond of it as much as the others. But I digress, although I do have to say, I do love the fact that Sonic's got new sprites for running and jumping off strings and what have you. They are really well done sprites. I love the sprite work in this game. In fact, the entire graphical design of this game is phenomenal. I mean, look at this. The art style is phenomenal. I don't know what the fuck's going on in most of these levels because the art style just it makes you feel like you're on LSD for the majority of this game. I mean, for example, look at this background by now. Parallax scrolling doesn't work like this. You have the foreground that's moving left and you have a background moving right. It just doesn't make sense. Well, actually no, it's not that. It's basically the foreground's moving faster than the background, which is backwards, you know. Honestly, a lot of these special stages, I feel that I got a weird feeling that someone in the development team just sort of screwed up the parallax scrolling and they just went with it. I'm just assuming, but I don't know, I digress. We got one more of these UFOs, and this from this point on, this is where the UFO sort of time stone special stages start to get a bit more trickier, you know, they get a bit more challenging from this point. They're still more than easy enough to do, because, well, we got plenty of time to do them, obviously, because it gives you tons of time. Speaking of time, there's the 4th time stone. So yeah, we got 2 more. Unless I am wrong in the 7 time stones, I'm pretty sure the 6th though, so we either got 2 or 3 more left to go, which is pretty insane if you think about it. Although now we're coming up to one of my least favorite boss battles in the entire game. Again, I love the music, I have to be honest, I really do love the music. I get some Phantasy Star Online vibes from this actually. But, yeah, this boss fight is pinball. You guys ever play Sonic Spinball? Well, this is when I was recording this, because I record these LPs in the order that I actually commentate all of them. Before I was recording Sonic Spinball, you know, I've done the LP of Sonic Spinball, but my exact thoughts when I was actually LPing this game was, oh god, I'm gonna fear doing Sonic Spinball. Those were my exact thoughts, because this is so difficult, because the way the mechanics work, they're not proper pinball mechanics, you know. It's like Sega went halfway with the pinball mechanics and then sort of half-assed it a little bit, so it just doesn't work. So I have some major issues in just aiming and just getting up to the boss fight in this one, folks, you see? I'm pausing once to save you now. Seriously, you got it. Basically what you need to do is hit the boss once. Honestly, once you get to reach the boss, you won. But just getting to the boss is such an absolute nightmare. I mean, the boss fights in this game are really gimmicky and unique, and I applaud Sega for trying something like that, you know, but the problem with them is they tend to be very tedious to get through, tedious to complete, because sometimes they're just awkward to get to, and other times they're just flat out boring because they're too easy and there's no challenge. Don't get me wrong, the Sonic series always has no challenge in most of their boss fights, like Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, you can destroy most of the bosses just by booping them a few times, but they still made them fun, you know. And those bosses just seem tedious in this game, personally, I feel. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for part 1 of Sonic CD. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't be sheepish, people, and I'll catch you all next time in part 2. Thanks for watching. Don't be sheepish. Bye!